Hey everybody, I hope that you are able to hear me. Audio test. All right, let's go ahead and get going. It seems like my sound is working. It seems like also there was a problem with the link initially. I'm very sorry for that. Hopefully everybody got the notification of the new link that got sent out and was created. Now we're here again. I'm Christopher Bonanno. We have another YouTube live Splunk analytics session for you today, and we're going to be talking about how to be awesome with ADQL. Now, ADQL is the AppDynamics query language for the analytics event service. We'll get more into it, but before that, I did want to start going into the agenda. So now with the agenda, we're going to go over a quick review. We're not going to spend too much time. We're assuming that if you're wanting to get good at ADQL, that you kind of know what analytics is. We'll do a quick review of it, and then we'll start more focusing on just building those ADQL queries after we also stop and look at what some of the requirements and best practices, because if you're going in creating queries and you're having tons of problems, maybe some of those best practices weren't met, and that's why you're having so much trouble with it. So just to preface, doing good ADQL queries, we'll touch on a couple points over there. And then if time allows it, we're going to go over some example of the widget use cases that you might use from your queries. And then I'll leave you with some closing thoughts and leave some time for Q&A. We do have some panelists here on the call. So if you have anything that you want to ask, go ahead and put it in the chat there next to where the video is playing in the YouTube link. Now, as a quick review, we do want to kind of see what is it exactly? What is analytics? What is ADQL at high level? Or looking at the documentation definition, analytics extracts data, generates baselines and dashboards, as well provides perspective beyond traditional monitoring by enabling real-time analysis of business performance correlated with your application performance. So how is the things downstream in your application affecting the bottom line of the company? What's the business impact if your network goes down? What's the business impact if an application is not working well? And we'll get more into that on the next slide. Now, I also want to point out that the user is actually interfacing with the controller using the ADQL language. So it's kind of like, if you use SQL for databases or other querying tools, then this is going to be pretty straightforward for you. It has a lot of similarities, but it is in AppDynamics. It is using AppDynamics data in Elasticsearch, which is the event service cluster. And then when they're putting in their query in the controller, it goes against that. It pulls out the information they want, and then it gives you a bunch of cool ways to represent the data. So let's keep going. So this is kind of a bottom-up explanation. So obviously, if you have an application and you have infrastructure and you are looking at the performance data, all of that stuff is very important, obviously, you especially to troubleshoot and to make sure things are running right. If you're an SRE or a DevOps or a app ops or whoever, whatever persona or hat you wear, you want to know that things are performing well. But what if you can go a level beyond that? What if you can have business intelligence? And that's what the business IQ is. And analytics can help you raise it by helping you correlate it into, using the data that's in AppDynamics and correlate it to a real business impact. So for the sake of example, say that you're having problems in your network throughput, say that it's, the application's running slow and it's not allowing people to log in. Now, say for this example, you're an insurance company. You have a certain flow that people go through called conversion. And then at the end of that flow, it almost always results in a revenue generating, key point of interest for you, which is, did a policy get issued? And if it didn't, and it's caused kind of because of technical issues, then you want to know that business impact. You have executives, you have app owners, you have CEOs that want to be able to say, hey, I understand fully what is going on in my IT infrastructure and my IT assets and how that directly affects my business's bottom line. Now, to do that, you need mass amounts of data. Where would this data come from? Now, the three types of data that are going into analytics that are considered event data is almost all of the data coming in from your end user monitoring, so your BRUM and your MRUM, all of that data, the user sessions and the geolocation, things like that. All of that's already getting pumped into there. And then if you have licensing, you're able to kind of utilize it for different purposes. And then application performance monitoring. So the APM side, the app, those microservices running in the background that are, calling out to SQL or CDNs or, basically making everything work on the front end, is usually some sort of back end application. And all of the transactions that are happening there are also considered events that are associated with analytics. And we'll break that down more on the next slide. And then you can also create custom data using either the analytics events API, or if you're creating, I guess this would be back on the APM side. If you're creating, data collectors. Data collectors are like custom metrics that you're pulling into your application. You would also be able to create those as, transaction analytics as well. Or if you are actually creating a, custom data, you can actually pump that back into the analytics events API and create a custom metric that is that you can utilize analytics to slice and dice information on that as well. We'll get more into all this stuff. Let's keep going on. Now, this is that breakdown I promised with the EUM and the APM events. So now analytics data is commonly referred to as event data. So now there's some terminology whenever you're looking at something new, right? There's some terminology differences. So on the event side, on the EUM side, pretty much all browser requests and sessions, the AJAX requests and everything on both the browser and mobile side. Also synthetic sessions, also your IoT device data or sessions associated with that. And then on the APM side, it's more centralized around business transactions. So what's going from tier to tier, the HTTP data collector information, custom data collectors, like I gave an example of earlier, or the business data from SQL calls. So all the calls going through the multiple tiers of your application, and the calls going out to other HTTP calls going out to other sources like the databases. As long as it's associated with that business transaction, then it will be picked up as an APM event or something that you can search against. And that's the point of it, because using analytics data, it's great if you know what you're doing, because otherwise you're just pumping all this data into it. But the power of it comes from searching. And now you see some good examples of all of the information going on in, and then you would do some sort of search. And then from that search, you can generate lots of powerful visualizations of that data representing what matters most to you. There's, if you just want some sort of a chart, almost like an Excel sheet, you have that option. If you want to pump in some custom metrics, you can. If you want to do kind of a funnel conversion, basically, say that you have a shopping cart, or you have some sort of flow where if the user doesn't progress all the way every time, you might be dropping some income, or you might want to find out why those drop offs are happening. You can use AppDynamics Analytics to be able to kind of find out, where's the point that they're dropping off. It looks like they're dropping off most here. The health seems to be an indicator of why, and then you guys can start diving into that and be you can either address it reactively or try to be proactive about it and start getting those alerts and everything set up so that you don't have to do digging. But if you do have to dig, having proper representation of it is hands down awesome. And then you also have the ability to start doing comparisons. If you want to compare kind of like things from now, from earlier, or a shopping, maybe the third day of a shopping season. Say that you have a week-long event for a sale, and you want to do a comparison of what it normally would be versus what it is this week, or even day to day, or loan approvals, and back into that funnel conversion. Or maybe it's more of a business journey, and you're wanting to see, which part of the process, say that you're a delivery, say that it's just, some sort of journey that your customers would be going through on the website, which part of it is broken. Or say that you're a pharmacy, and, they're checking out their prescription drugs, what part of that is not working for your customers, or for the people that care most about it, or the people that are driving your business, right? And then correlation data, just tons of options for you to choose from. You can add these things to dashboards. I'm sure you guys are already aware of dashboards, but let's keep going. I did promise you guys to try to keep this the smaller part of this session. And I'm intending to keep that, because I know that you guys want me to spend more time in the demo doing some queries, so you guys get more exposure to it. But it is important to know these things, because I'm not really going to explain to you how to set them up. I'm just going to kind of explain, real lightly how to do it. And then now, agent requirement. If you're running a standalone analytics agent, which you can do, you can do it. You can use it with Node.js, PHP, Python, Java, and .NET. Python, Java, and .NET have some requirements of their own independent agent that they're using. PHP and Node.js do not. On the agent list, which is way more common, recommended, and everything else, the bundled information there is, the bundled agent is basically an APM agent that already has analytics built into it. Beautiful. It allows you to just turn it on with a flip of a switch in the controller, and we'll show you that in the next one. There are some, obviously some limitations on the agent. If you have a newer version of Java, .NET, or the controller, I'm sure you're fine. Don't worry about it. If you have some older stuff, take note of what I have here. Now, obviously, to be able to get analytics useful, you need data pumping into it. So there are some, basic requirements of not only having the agents there, but also making sure the data is coming in. So on the APM side, you need at least one application set up with, whatever transactions they have selected over there. That'll make more sense on the next slide. But ultimately, you want to make sure that you at least have one application, one transaction selected, getting over there, or you're not going to see anything in here. And then you also want to make sure you have licensing for it. Transaction Analytics does have additional licensing that is required outside of just regular APM. So definitely talk to your salesperson about that, or ask someone on your account team that's dealing with your Cisco products. And then on the EUM side, which is both browser and MRUM, it again, has a licensing requirement, but it also, you're also wanting to make sure that it's reporting and that the analytics data is coming into. But a lot of that data already lives in the event service cluster. So it's kind of like you need a license to be able to use it for the things you want to use it for instead of what the controller is already doing. And then, like anything else, role-based access control is important. Sometimes there's user data in there, customer data or proprietary information. So obviously it's going to be restricted, and you need to make sure that you have the correct roles as either a user which is kind of like view only, or you can add a widget to your dashboard, or admin where you can actually configure applications for analytics and or create searches, which we're going to be doing very shortly. And let's go ahead and keep going. So we also want to, now when we're looking at the transactions, I mentioned this, I alluded to this multiple times before, but to set it up, if you have the agent out there, all you need to do is go under analytics and then configuration. And then for transaction monitoring, it's solely based around APM, application performance monitoring, where you have agents there. Most likely that's already bundled with the analytics agent, like I was mentioning before. And then you can pick and choose, if you have a green marker here next to the application, that means that there's an agent there. I gave you some examples where, or I alluded to there being a standalone agent. And if you are using a really old APM agent or one of the technologies that aren't supported for bundled agents, then you have to make sure that this is green next to it. If it's red, you won't be able to turn this on. It won't work. But if it's green, you're golden. Or if it's green, you're good to go, I should say. And you just pick which applications you want to select. You can select which business transactions from each application you want. So basically, because I have this AD games here highlighted, these are all the business transactions associated with only that application. And I can pick and choose, do I really care about all of these, or do I just want the most critical ones? And I can pick and choose that, save myself some licensing, save myself some controller load. And then say that you do that, and then you're planning to scale up really fast. You want everything being pumped into analytics, and you don't want to have to. You do not want to have to come in here for every single application. You do have this option up here on the top, where you can enable analytics for all new applications. And this is more for like net new applications. So every time it's onboarded or someone deploys or someone uses your pipeline, it'll automatically show up in here. And then I would recommend every once in a while coming in here and just double checking that it's all applications you care about. It's all the business transactions for each one of those for each one of those applications that you care about. Less is more in a lot of ways, not only in tuning applications, but also, refining what is going into analytics. But if you need a lot, there's no harm in selecting everything that you actually need. And then also remember, this is where you are able to hit this little slider in the UI and say, enable it for all applications that are going to be onboarded henceforth. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time here because this is looking at just cleanup. You guys know about the business transaction cleanup and making sure that you have, you stay under your limits, make sure you're only looking at applications that have good downstream snapshotting ability, and then other stuff might be a service endpoint. So it's a very similar approach here with both the BRUM and mobile RUM. Which is the browser real user monitoring or the mobile real user monitoring, a website or an application on your phone kind of thing. And then you want to either exclude or include things that you actually want. If you do not create any sort of filtering here on the BRUM, all AJAX requests are put into your analytics. And now if you have bad information going in, you have more data to dig through. It's more work on the controller, more licensing for the analytics being used as well. Not to mention, you're just getting stuff and making it harder on yourself. Get things that matter. get things that, get rid of things that don't matter, and is the best approach with any sort of observability tool. And AppDynamics is no exception to that. Now, the same explanation applies to MRUM. So basically, you're going to go under the mobile app and do the same kind of cleanup. And this will not be something that you're going to just do one and done. It's going to be something that you should check in on maybe once a year or every 6 months or every 4 big deployments, or every time there's a bunch of new calls and development done on an application. It's not a bad idea to go back and just double check that you have everything that you need. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to look at this in slide form at first, because it's just a little easier to start breaking it down, but then we'll reinforce it with a good demo, and we'll spend more of the time there than anything else. So first of all, you have 2 options to choose from in the types of queries that you can run in AppDynamics. So this is where you start going in the is it basic or is it more advanced? And the ADQL that we've been talking about and that I have hopes to help you be awesome in is the query language search. But not everybody's comfortable with that, or sometimes people need to kind of understand it on a basic level and they want more drop downs and click and point and drag and drop and things like this that are more visual. You have the visual learners, and then you have the hardcore coders that are just like, give me it. I've been doing SQL for 10 years. Let me have at it. Not to mention, as you're building these things, it does prompt you, and I'll show you that more on the demo, but it does give you some good information as you go, as you're building it. And it's just a space bar away, kind of like Linux when you hit tab and it completes it for you. And if it doesn't do anything, then it doesn't exist. Very similar here. Now, your standard search will always start with a select. You want to select the data points that you want from the location, or what did I mentioned before, the transactions. Is it more on the mobile side or is it more on the Brum? That's where you would specify that. So for this example, we're looking at transaction name and response time from all transactions, and then we have some filtering. So where the user experience, which is a metric that Splunk AppDynamics captures in APM, if it equals slow, then it will start showing it underneath this where you're writing the query. It'll be a lot better in the demo, but just to expose you to it. Now there are also three main components in addition. So when you're doing select from, it almost always does a star there, and then you can start doing the select and pick all the data points you want. But you also, to represent the point that you're trying to get across, you might need mathematical operators. So you might need to say, I only want to know the transactions where the response time times the cart value is greater than 100. So the cart value might be 100. It might be a money value. So they only care if they only want to be prioritizing the analytics search to be looking at what is over $100 for this cart value. Where the response time, I want to know the response time, and I want to know the correlation here. And so you'll find mathematical operators, and then you have logical operators and complex filtering. So obviously, a logical operator kind of like, I want the where app key equals whatever the app key is. This is like a logical operator. You have a list of things that are, it might be not equals, greater than, or less than, things of that nature. And then you also can do complex filtering, where you're saying, where it equals this, and also the field name one in, basically you can start drilling down further into what other options there are to filter. And you'll kind of notice that in the select part, you're going to see that you can add filters for the data points that you're looking for, but then you also have the where statement where it's kind of directing it. If it's in the actual data source, like the source of it, and it's not from like specifically filtering the name or something that you're trying to select from, then you're going to want to put that more in the where, and vice versa. If you're trying to create another data point from a previous data point, stuff like that, and you're filtering your data that you're already pulling as opposed to pulling it from the base data, then that is where you might want to start just loading it up real heavy in filtration on the where side. And then data aggregation. So instead of having to add everything together and then divide, there are some data aggregation or aggregation options such as an average, which is a really common one. And we'll show you an example of that a little bit later. So now, when this is kind of what I was explaining, when you're actually building your query, this little box pops open. And now these are field expressions. So for each thing that you put in here, and then you hit space, an option or a box will pop up. And then, if it's an expression or kind of like a data source, that's where it's a field expression. If it's to show a relation or something, like I said, equals or not equals, or if you want to say, kind of break that up more, you can put in these logical operators. And then if there's actually, now after you've already drilled down and you're in so far, the actual values that are available to choose from, this would be the field values. And that's what this is trying to show you here. This will be a lot better in the demo. So let's go ahead and just keep scooting along. Now, executing a search, you just hit the search button. It starts showing you right here. And then it almost always starts out at this point. It's kind of just giving you like an Excel sheet. If these are all lit up, you can click on them and it'll show you those visualizations a lot easier. If you want just raw data, you can hit raw data, but most everybody uses the visualizations. Just depends on what you're after. All right, so without further ado, let's jump over to the controller. Now, this is what you guys came for, right? I'm sorry I have to give so much preface information so that the people that aren't as familiar with ADQL, they can kind of stay along too. And then also, you may already be pretty comfortable with ADQL, and you might just need a little quick refresher to understand. Maybe you had a bad experience with it and you're like, oh, that's why. Or maybe you're like, oh, okay, this was a good refresher. Or maybe you learned some little bit of information in there, hopefully. Let's go ahead and get into analytics. And then I'm going to hide this away so I have more visual space. And now this is the landing page. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but basically you have a drop down of the applications and a summary view of everything that's going on in them. Same thing for the EUM side, where you can either select a browser app or a mobile app, and you can get some summary information there. We're going to focus on the searches though. And I do have a video that shows you more of the navigation, how to set analytics up. I definitely encourage everybody to check out the link, or I'll put a link in the chat, or if somebody or one of my panelists here can grab that for me and put it in the chat, that'd be fantastic. But otherwise, I'll leave it in the description, or I'll put a card on this video so that you can easily go over there and find it. But it's in our content list, and it explains a lot more of setting things up. But let's go focus on the search. So now I'm going to focus more on the query language search, but I do want to show you something really cool. If you go over to the advanced one, the query language, and you're just like, ugh, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do this, or maybe I want to start out on something basic. So I'll hit this basic over here. And oh my gosh, what does this look like? This is pretty much the drag and drop option, but it's built into the advanced side. So I still have the option of picking and choosing, clicking and checkboxing, things like that. But we're going to focus on the advanced. And what's kind of cool is after you've started building it, and then you start realizing, you know what, I'm not really using anything super advanced in my query. You can just go ahead and, as you already have stuff here, and hit basic. And a lot of times it will convert it to a basic one and select everything for you. So you don't have to go back and recreate it every time you hit that conversion over here, the basic and advanced conversion button here. Let me make this a little bigger for you. Basic search. All right. So now I'm just going to hit search. And now it always looks at the time picker, just like everything else in the controller. And now it also gives me fields if I want to mess with them. I'm not doing any of that. Well, except the ones that it just has, out of the box. But now let's go ahead and start doing some more advanced queries. I just get my notes here. Sorry for that. All right, so this is a super, this is just what it starts out with. The star means everything, or the asterisk means everything. It also means multiplication, depending on how you're using it. So just look out for that as a little tidbit of information. And I'm going to go ahead and say count. Now, what I'm saying by doing this is that I want to select the count, which means it's going to be, instead of everything, it's going to just have one column that says count. And it's going to be all transactions of all applications within the last 1 hour. Let's go ahead and see that. An account would be a number value, right? Like how many transactions are there across all applications on this controller in the last 1 hour? 76,000 looks like, over 76,000. Again, the things that are lit up, I can select on. You'll notice that the time series are all grayed out because there's nothing there for time series to be picked up on. And let's just go back to table because it's easier to start building our query this way. And then now let's go ahead and let's make it a time series. So I'm going to, in front of count, I'm going to put series. And if you're typing it in, or you start typing it in and it completes it for you, just hit enter. Also, pretty much when you hit space, it starts giving you options of what you can select in addition to, or that would be appropriate there. So that's always very helpful. In this case, I need to put a parentheses, and then I'm going to put event timestamp. Then I'm going to close, or I'm sorry, I have to specify what the timestamp is that I'm going to care about. So do I care about every 1 minute? Do I care about every 5 minutes? I'm going to, just for sake of example, and we have a lot of data to work with, I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to just go ahead and say, I want this broken up in a time series by every 60 seconds. So every 1 minute. I'm going to close those parentheses. And then because it is multiple columns or multiple data points, we have to separate those by a comma. So this will be, this series, this will be one column, this will be the other. It's still grabbing all of the transactions from all applications unless I add a filter. Let's go ahead and see what's happening. All right, so now I see the, and then also you'll notice it's very literal, and the naming, don't let this bother you. It's gonna be ugly until we progress a little further, and then I promise we'll clean it up, okay? Now, this is where, I have the option of sitting there trying to type it out, and you guys can watch me fat finger it and mess up in front of you because I got a bunch of people watching me. I'm just going to copy and paste it in so that you guys don't have to see me diagnose my syntax errors and such. But I will explain each change and each progression that I'm making. So now, this should look familiar, right? All of this is what we had. Now, what I'm having it do here, we're actually going to add a column that is related to anything that has this error show up. So every time this error shows up, I want it to get a count. And that's why I added this filter count in front of it. And you'll understand what it's doing more when it actually has the column head. It explains it in the title. That's why it's good to do your renaming later, because you can kind of understand, you can kind of follow along your own work. These things get, your eyes start, darting, darting everywhere else than where it's supposed to be. So you want to make sure that you're, try to be easy on yourself, do things progressively, and just know you can change all of these, and we will. Now, so this is another example now. So we have the time series just like before. And if you notice, there's all the time series visualizations lit up, or they turned black. They're not grayed out anymore. But these ones went away, where before we were able to. So it's a time series. We have the total count, and then this is the count of everything out of this count. This is the count that it has this error show up in it. So we added a filter to make sure, that this is only grabbing what we're wanting, and it's basically filtering it off of here. And then, like I said, time series lights up. I can do a area graph, line graph, points, column, all that good stuff. But I can't just put a number. I can't just put a pie or things that I was able to do on the other, or without making it a time series. And this is kind of what makes it a time series right here. Now that we're back over in a table format, I wanted to also start building on this more. So again, I work at building my queries in this table setter or setting, so that I can kind of visualize the data that's coming in, as opposed to immediately putting it into a graph or something where it might not be as clear that you have something wrong. So that's why I like to do it this way. If you have another approach, I'd love to hear it. If you want to put it in, the chat or comments or anything, we're always wanting to expand what we give our community, and all the tools are the better, or the more tools the better. So let's go ahead and let's start cleaning this up, or actually let's start finding out. I'm sorry. This is where we want to start finding out things like, maybe I want it to just spell it out for me, like what percentage of this count of business transactions going through the application. Oh, I also forgot to mention. So the global filters, right? Where application equals AD financial next. So this is actually not pulling from all applications. It's pulling specifically from this application and the specific tier underneath that application, web API. So I'm sorry, I forgot to explain that. I think on the last one that I put in there, I was really focused on the first half of it, because that it's a little harder to understand this part, I feel like. But because it is all, it's working great. We know that it's working. We're getting data here. Now let's make it better. Let's just make it spell it out for us. What's the percentage? Do I want to really sit there and divide 778 into 7, and find out the percentage myself every single time? Or would it be helpful to just have it right there as an extra column? I think that it would be useful as another column. So I'm going to paste the new one in here. And now I want to point out what we changed. So we already had the time series. We already had the regular count. Now we also had the count of those same transactions with errors. And now we're wanting to find out basically this divided by this times 100 to move the decimal in 2 places. So we're adding some mathematical equations in there, still from transactions, and still where the application is AD Financial Next, and also the tier within that application is Web API, and all 4 broken down within the last hour. Okay, let's do a search. Fantastic. So now we see that there is 2.35% available. I'm sorry, 2.35% is the percentage of transactions that have that specified error out of the total count of the all of the transactions going on in that application in that tier, which is 766. So 18 within the 60 seconds out of the 766 is 2.35%. Pretty awesome, and especially if you have more serious SLAs and stuff like that, or more serious, you want to be able to be proactive, and sometimes you don't want to wait for some sort of monthly report. You want to see it in real time, and you'd be able to put something like this on a dashboard. All right, so here's the next one. Sorry, I normally like to be able to type it out with you guys, but for sake of time, it's just a lot faster and easier to do it this way. So now I went ahead and it's still the same there. And we're doing renamings now. So now the count, instead of it just being count, we're saying as total transactions. And then over here, this filter, you know what? Why does timestamp have to be the only ugly one? So let's put a space, as, and then we're going to put something custom. We'll say time stamp. And we'll also put a little 60 seconds so that when it's being represented out there in the real world for executives, we can go ahead and have that renamed as well. So time series will show up as timestamp. And then, series event timestamp will show up just as timestamp with 60 seconds next to it, just for that added information. Count will be changed to total transactions. The total filtered information coming in about which out of those transactions, which of them have this in as an error, will be total number of errors. And then when we're looking at the percentage that we wanted, that will be coming in as percentage of web API controller errors. And then it's still coming from transactions, and it's still coming from where it's that application and this tier. It's kind of a mouthful to say all of this, but sometimes just walking through the query will help build on top of what you already know and understand. If somebody else built it, sometimes you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You'll just go grab it, copy it, paste it, and then at least you have an understanding of how to break down what they're doing. Now look, check it out. We have clean names, good data, and I can pop that into a time series visualization, throw it on a dashboard, and it's just extremely helpful. And you can mouse over and you can actually see the totals and everything that you're trying to find. For this one specifically, I really like the table. I think that it just depends on your role or who you're making this for. And again, we waited till the end to add those as. So we just went back and did some cleanup. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to square one. Now we're running low on time, so I'm gonna have to go kind of fast, but not too fast, hopefully. Anyways, now this is just we have just regular data here again, and this time we want to get select, and we're gonna do transaction name, and we're gonna add response time from transactions, and let's go ahead and add a filter. So where application equals, every time you hit a space, a new box pops up. It's awesome. So, and we'll go ahead and do AD financial. Oops. You know what? Let me just pick it from the list. Make it easy on myself. We'll do a search. So now we're looking at a list of all of the business transactions listed by their name, and then associated with them, we have the response times. Pretty cut and dry, pretty easy. Let's keep going. So now along the way, we're going to start cleaning it up. Just a matter of approach that you want to try. I like doing it at the end, but if it's a simple chart, then you don't have to reinvent, you don't have to make it overly complex. All right, so now let's filter it more. So now we have these really clean results, but we only want it to show, I only want it to show that, whatever has an average. Oh, I'm so sorry. This isn't a data aggregation. This is a huge important thing here, because we're not just looking at just response time listed. This is the average response for all of the transactions happening, within the last 1 hour. Oh, geez. Okay. And now let's say that we only care about the ones that are over a certain amount of time. So I'm saying specifically adding it to the filter part. So where the application equals this, having a response time, so a value that's here, I only want it to show if it has a response time over 700. These are my problems. These are my problem transactions. Anything, my SLA is 700, so I want it to be specified to my SLA, the thing that I have a contractual agreement with my client to meet, and that's why I want to organize the data this way. And now let's go ahead and, this is going to be the third use case. This is not going to be the one that we have access to specifically. Oh, I'm sorry. We have access to it. I'm just saying I don't want to show you step by step how to build this because it's massive. And also if you start loading up the columns, it takes the visualizations away. Even if you start adding things in there that you might be able to throw in a time series and get these to light up again. But usually when you have this much, you want to be able to you want to represent this data properly. And if you start making it like crazy with visualizations and not dealing with real data, then when everyone is expecting real summary of data, then this is just keep it a table in this kind of situation. So we're selecting the application, the tier, the transaction name, and then the total calls, and then we're also adding the user experience equaling out an error, and then also the error rate, the success, and then the success rate is being found by doing some math. I don't mean to diminish the what it's doing either, but yeah, it's basically finding again total calls, dividing that into the error rate, or the error rate by the total calls, and then timesing it by 100 to move over the decimals, and that's the success rate. And then you also, if you have additional understanding of what your error budget is, for your SLA and stuff, then this is where you can start putting that to work for you, and making sure that you're able to, have this represented as well. So I cannot think of an SRE that wouldn't love this view. All right, and then just for sake of example, because I've been sticking with only transactions, I would like to just kind of show an example of an EUM search. So this would be I'm showing the geo region and how many of them across all of our mobile apps. And if you notice, all of these lit up. So these weren't all lit up on most of the things you're looking at. So it's kind of cool to see it, a different representation or different data and how you can represent it. All right. So we don't have much time on this use cases. The technical blip at the end or at the beginning kind of messed things up, but I just want to expose you to where you can put these visualizations that you build. Again, I explain these visualizations a lot more in that other YouTube video that's already existing on our channel. This is that funnel graph, or that the conversion funnel, where people might abandon, or they might drop their cart or not go through all the process, and you want to try to find out why. You start attaching the performance data to what it means to your business. Or if you're doing if you have a bunch of different agents working for you, and you're trying to make sure that they're meeting their quotas, or if you have a funnel graph for their process, finding out which part or which geolocation they're in, things like that. Or you might just want to look at straight up your user journeys. The user journeys are, you understand that at this point, but say that you want to, along the way of a user journey, you also want to understand extra key points of interest. So you can start pulling out money values and start understanding exactly how it affects the revenue of the company. Say that this is a big one, right? You're wanting to do a comparison of how things are performing, not only in terms of response time and how the apps are supported and things like that, but if you're looking at the real world examples of, hey, for our customers, what does this mean to them? How is it affecting them? It looks like there's more errors, more drop-offs for their on-prem. As soon as they went over to cloud, the same login issue is occurring. It looks like the account home, similar issues are occurring in a lot less scale, but everything else seems to be cleaned up, and you're getting a lot more through on the AWS side as a percentage, but not necessarily, you're still getting a fair amount of abandoners, considering these are much lower values coming in on AWS. You're probably, starting to convert over and migrate, and seeing those comparisons are awesome. So another comparative result that you might want to see is between two versions of the same application. Very useful for, not only checking the night of, but also watching it and maintaining it before you do the full deployment. So say that, at the end of, on one sprint, you do a couple nodes of changing that version, and you want to see a good comparison of the two before you do the rest. Or if you want to backdate this to the previous week, and now this is the new week, you have a lot of options of what you can do there. So some closing thoughts, how to make your ADQL searches awesome. Make sure that you are tuning your APM and EUM apps as best you could. If you need help with it, reach out to your customer success representative, or if you're working with professional services, or if or check out the other videos on this YouTube channel that tell you basically how to do that. We do have, working sessions and things like this YouTube Live that you can sign up for as well. There's a link to the calendar with all of that on the main page of our YouTube. There's a link there, and you can look at things. It's free. You just sign up and you show up, and you get something out of it. Beautiful, right? So beyond just cleaning things up and trying to make it so that it's easier for you to make these really nice queries, and you don't have to put so much in the query to clean things out, this is really helpful. Obviously, utilizing the renaming feature, it makes a lot more sense. It keeps your data represented a lot cleaner. And then when you're building ADQL queries, make sure that it fits the information that your audience or the personas of the audience are interested in. If you're talking to developers, they probably don't care about, they would care about drop off on a technical sense, but they don't necessarily care about the money values of it. If they're executive, they probably care more about those money values than just the technical aspects of it. And then also, when you start building widgets, make sure you put them in your dashboards, like those use cases that I showed you just a moment ago. Put them in there when they're relevant. It just really adds a lot of value to it. You get a lot of good information from the dashboard as it is, but then if you can refine it and you can have contextual information for the business on that same dashboard, oh man, mind blowing for the people that need it the most. So I do want to check the chat and see if we have any questions that came in. I don't have an option of you sharing my audio, but I do see some people in here. I don't see anyone typing. And I'm 1 minute from from being done here. So I guess if a question comes up, drop us a comment and we'll try to address it there. Feel free still, if you have anything, put it in the chat. I will kind of slow down and get that for you. I know that from my stream to what you guys are watching, it's a little behind. But I'm going to go ahead and progress to the next slide, and I will stop and pause and address any questions that come in on the chat. So Cisco U is not only Splunk AppDynamics, it is also all Cisco products. It's fantastic. Now, this is an enablement. This is something to help you walk through and get comfortable. And YouTube, is awesome for everybody to learn whatever they want to learn, right? Whether it's how to clean a sink using Coca-Cola, or if you're learning how to build advanced queries within an observability tool. YouTube is great, but if you want certification, you want in-depth teacher-led courses where it's more of a school setting. There are some, lessons that you click and you follow through. Those are all on there. So I highly recommend you guys checking out u.cisco.com. And then always stay tuned and check out what we have going on our YouTube. It's our YouTube at Cisco Observability. Super catchy, super easy to remember, and it's run by the customer success specialists and customer success team over here. Customer success is helping you guys get the most out of the products that you have from Cisco, and we just want to help you guys get better and better. We appreciate your guys' feedback. We use that to build the next content or even to adjust our delivery of the content. So please, drop us comments, send us messages, let us know how we're doing, what you need or what you would like to see, and we'll be open to it. And always, thank you. These things are only a success by you guys watching, by you guys contributing and giving feedback, or just liking and subscribing and checking us out and staying tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much for all of it, and have a great rest of your day.